Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. My name's Bobby, and this is how I grow orchids and carnivorous plants. Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. So today's video, we're just going to have a look around a bunch of orchid related stuff, and of course there's going to be some blooms. We have a few new blooms to share, and just lots of stuff. I was looking around in here doing some watering yesterday and this morning, and I've noticed that I have been a little bit lazy with some things, and I need to make some changes fast. So we're going to talk about that and some other things as we walk through my little grow space and go from there. So I hope you guys enjoy. And we're going to get right in here and start looking at our first couple plants, but we are going to start with a new bloom. So here goes nothing. So the first new bloom we're going to have a look at is Columnia Calacayla. Beautiful little Columnia flower. This is the one we've been waiting for, guys. Really neat little plant. The plant kind of looks just like some pine needles that are on the ground or something, I'm sure. It's just a weird little Columnia. Fan comes out in fans still. I mean, they are fan-shaped growths, but they are just needle-like. I mean, they are not your traditional equitant shape or whatever you want to call it. So that's the bloom. It does have a little bit of a sweet floral fragrance, but it's most powerful when the direct sun is on the bloom. I've been growing this plant for a little about a year and a half now. Struggled with it a bit. It really does, in my environment at least, like the bare bark. It comes from a very, very, very arid, dry, well, not dry necessarily, but it comes from an area that doesn't get a lot of rainfall. This relies mostly on dews and mists and things like that. It grows in a very xerophytic area, so interesting species with a beautiful bloom. Alrighty, so the first plant that we're going to talk about is actually right next to this guy. And this is my Pharyniferum cernua. I've had this plant for a couple years now. I'm going to go ahead and take it off of here because I'm woven in between this massive spike. We're going to talk about this plant a little bit closer. Now, I got this plant as a seedling from Hauserman Orchids. It has grown quite a bit actually in the last couple years. It's got a lot of new growth coming on this side of the plant, the window side, which tends to be the way it wants to grow. It's growing towards the window and down just a little bit. But I've noticed a decline in this plant in the last month or so, and the reason being, I believe, is the moss that it's on. You can see if you look close, that moss looks tired. This plant does stay a little bit more moist than most of my other Cattleya types. All of my Pharyniferums do. And I think the moss has just started to go off. And I also noticed a couple spider mites crawling around on the plant and on the mount the other day when I was watering. So we're going to try to tend to that as well. This is going to get doused with some pretty heavy stuff today. So going to freshen up the moss here a little bit later. Not in this video, but you guys will see the finished product, I'm sure, in the next. And try to save this plant because I do not want to lose it. I've worked really hard to get it this far, and it still hasn't bloomed. I do not want to set this plant back too far, and I do not want to lose it, so time to save it. Now, while we're on the topic of letting a plant's moss go too far, I have my bulbophyllum Lassio Column var dark and my regular bulbophyllum Lassio Column species here, and both of these plants I have managed to let the mount just get way out of control. We saw both of these plants in my video of bulbophyllum upkeep and maintenance a few months ago. And what I really should have done at that time was change out this moss. I made a judgment call not to do it, and it really was the wrong call. So these two, along with my bulbophyllum ambrosia, are all going to get moss updates here probably today or tomorrow. And they are hopefully going to turn into happier, healthier plants, because I do notice roots dying off, and I do notice that they're struggling. They are not growing as profusely as they once were. So I'm a little bit worried. I've sent back the Lassio Column, but this one I think I can save. It's still a pretty big, healthy plant, but we're just going to have to see. Hopefully I didn't mess it all up. Anyhow, that's another one. The next plant, I'm actually going to have to pull it out, is my Neophenesia falcata, but we're going to have a closer look at it down here on the ground. Now, this is my Neophenesia falcata. This is the original section of it. It grew this and this last year, and I'm thrilled to say that they are doing really well. The main base here is producing another shoot, so that's another growth from this plant, and the whole plant right now is producing roots all over the place. So it's time. You can see here this moss is ultra manky and nasty. I have not done my yearly repot for this plant, and it is definitely time. So I noticed the other day that on the largest growth here, it seems to have another little red button down at the bottom, and that's typically a sign that this thing wants to push out another fan. So starting to really get the growth on this thing, and I do not want to muck it all up by letting these roots go. So I'm probably actually going to do this on video. I've never done a kokedama on video. I'm not that great at it, but I will do that so I can help show you guys, just in case you have never seen it before. Lynn Smith, she grows a lot of these plants a lot better than I do. If you guys want information on these, you should definitely check out her channel, but I'm hoping to get it right so I can expand my collection and have some more of the lovely versions of this plant like she does. So that's my Neophenesia falcata, and it is definitely due. That will be probably my next video. I have an update here. This is my Diplo collabium pharyniferum, and this is one of the plants that we remounted recently when we did some upgrades on moss and other things on some of our other mounts. This plant, the roots were gone. It was just devastated. As you can see, I've got a lot of yellow leaves here from the disturbance, but the good news is, I'm going to try to zoom in on this thing. We do have an abundance of new roots coming out, and I don't know if you can see it or not, we have an abundance of these new growths popping out everywhere. So I think we've saved this plant. I still have it in a much higher light position. I might still have to move it down. I'm not sure if it's too much light. That might be part of the yellowing, but again, we had a bad disturbance and this plant had absolutely zero roots. So I think it's just reacting to a big change in its situation. Eager to see blooms. I think hopefully the increase in light will do it. I know this is a really tricky one to bloom, so eager to see it, but really happy to see roots coming back on this plant because it desperately needed it. Another exciting update is on this plant right here. This is my Mormolica refessions. We've got a really nice new growth coming on this plant, but more importantly, as we discovered last week, we have this awesome bud coming along. It's really grown a lot this last week, and I'm excited to see what happens. I think it's going to open up any day now, and I just cannot wait. I will definitely update you guys the moment it does. And yeah, it's supposed to be a fragrant orchid. It's supposed to have a vanilla-like fragrance, and I'm just really eager to see this. This is one of the plants I got in my first Equigenera order, and I got it for the bloom. It's just a really awesome looking maxillaria type bloom. Neat plant. It's got kind of long sausage-like pseudobulbs on it, single leaf, and my latest growth is bigger and badder than anything else, and that's the one this new growth is coming on. So I'm really eager to see if this plant finally takes off. It's got its moss updated, it's getting more light now, and it really does seem to be happy, so that's really great news. More new blooms. I've got my maxillaryattenuafolia here. Really lots of good news in the maxillaria world right now in here. That's awesome. I've struggled with these plants. They really can be kind of fussy, but let me tell you, it's a beautiful bloom. The bloom is the reason I cannot get rid of this plant. It takes over everything. It's really big for this space at least, and kind of a pain in the butt, but that is just one of the most beautiful blooms I have in here. The fragrance is great. You kind of have to get really close to it to be able to smell it properly, because it's not as powerful as I was hoping it would be, but it does smell just like fresh coconut. At least to me it does. It is really wonderful. I've got these two blooms here, and I've got another one just starting to open up down here as well. But no fourth one. I thought we had a fourth one for a little while, but I was mistaken. I just noticed this. That's not good. That's a piece of my dendrobium dichoides that the pot tore off. That's not good. But anyhow, beautiful blooms, and we're going to get on. I have one more awesome bloom to show you guys, and then I think I'm going to wrap this video up. So here we go. Sorry guys, I lied. We're actually going to look at this before we look at the last bloom. This is the dendrobium dichoides. We just tore this piece off. I threaded it back on there. No problem, no worries there. But I did want to get in close and show you guys. This is another plant that we dealt with. We chopped it up a bit. I remounted it on its own mount, new mount, and gave it some moss. And what we have here is tons of progress. I've got new growths popping up all over the place on this little plant, growing side shoots and main shoots and everything else. And I am really eager to see what happens with this thing. It's already a nice sized little plant. I had issues blooming it this last year. I think the moss went and I didn't tend to it fast enough, of course. Reoccurring issue this last year. But I'm happy to say that the plant is bouncing back really nicely, and it's pushing on quite nicely after being chopped and remounted. So I'm really eager to see what this thing does. I would just love to see this thing full of little pink blooms next winter into spring. Alrighty, now on to the bloom. So here we have our final bloom we're going to look at today. This is our Dracula gasoliana, and it has opened up its second bloom on this inflorescence. Really exciting news. This plant is doing tremendously well. Let me get a little bit closer for you guys so you can really appreciate how beautiful this one is. Awesome little Dracula. Hard to get all the detail on film, but I think you guys get the point. This has got the awesome little face, and it really is a relatively decently sized Dracula bloom, at least for me so far. Just thrilled. So on that note, I'm going to sign this video out. I appreciate you guys for watching, as always, and I hope you guys are continuing to stay safe out there. Thank you guys, and happy growing.